Katie. Thank you for joining me today. How are you?
Thank you for having me. I'm really good, thank you.
So obviously you are joined with me today to talk about mental health and your experiences and emotions through your life. So let's tell our viewers, who are you and what do you do?
Okay, so I am Katie Taylor-Smith and I started off a male mental health campaign called Men to Army. And that was due to a friend who committed suicide last year. I wanted to know why males seem to be having this pattern of committing suicide and what was going on, what the landscape looked like. So did some research and I thought not a lot of people know that 3 out of 4 suicides are male. So what I decided to do was through merchandise and social media, try and create awareness and mobilize people to know this information so that they could do something to support the male population in the UK.
Yeah, that's amazing. So when the day come that you found out, one of your friends had kind of committed suicide, what was going through your mind at the time?
Well, I'd just come home and I was scrolling through my Facebook and it just said RIP in his name. And I thought, oh, this is like a hoax. This isn't real.
Yeah,
Facebook's, you take it with a pinch of salt. But there was more and more and more. And I just thought, I just felt sick. My stomach, I just felt sick. And I thought, it didn't make sense. And I've studied psychology and psychological trauma for years and years and years now. I think I'm on my 10th year. So I feel like I've got some insight into human behaviour, but this didn't make any sense at all. And I needed, selfishly for me, I needed to understand why had this happened. Because if you know the why, then sometimes you can stop it from happening again.
yeah,
But yeah, initially it was like time just stood still. Like everything's just slowed right down. And it's kind of like a virtual world where you're trying to make sense of something that just doesn't make any sense.
yeah. Um, so when it kind of hit you that it was real and it did happen, what made you want to set up Men to Army?
So I thought, right, I had this massive need to find out why has this happened, so I could make sense of it. So I put up a video and I put it, I think it was originally on Twitter, and I was a little bit emotional. I was a little bit, you know, I was quite upset, and I just said, "Can someone please explain to me because I don't understand, and I need to understand because I can't make sense of why so many males, particularly in my local area. I wasn't looking nationwide. I only knew my own population around me, but there's a lot of males who've committed suicide, and I asked, what's going on? Can someone give me some information because I don't understand? And it was like an outpouring of people saying, we really like your video, we've been wondering the same thing, we need to do something. So I just went away and did my own research, got my own ideas on what I thought possibly could be contributing to the statistics.
Yeah,
And then Men to Army was actually meant to, because it came from a place of, okay, we've got all different vulnerable populations, but guess what? Guess what? Men are too. So that's why it's TOO. And then we went to Men to Army because we got 3,000 followers who were all wearing the t-shirts, and all of a sudden I'd gone from a person in a bedroom asking for help to 3,000 people wearing the t-shirts. We did the Race for Life. Not the 3,000, there was over 100 people who did the Race for Life, but there was 3,000 followers to the page. And then there was this expectancy put on what I felt had kind of blossomed. I didn't feel like it created it. I felt like it created itself.
yeah,
So I just thought it's strength in numbers now. It's not Men to anymore. It's Men to Army because it's not me, it's we. And I needed that. So it felt more like it was an army of thousands and thousands of people.
yeah. So personally, what's your experience with mental health?
Well, okay, so I'm 40 now. And I suppose if I was to go in chronological order, Um, I always had a nice childhood. I felt you only know, I suppose, what you have until you compare it to others. But looking back, I had a nice childhood. I've got a lovely mum and dad. Um, and I had quite an easy kind of teenage years. So for me, when I got into my 20s and I had my first daughter, it was a very lonely, isolated place to be because I didn't have a car, I'd moved up the area. There was a lot of time to think and overthink. My self-worth was really low and always had been from a child. So I suppose that was probably the first time, if I was to go back and if I wanted to label that with a diagnosis, I would say that was um, postnatal depression. Um, so it never got to the extent of self-harm. I just became very isolated and then started living that life. So then I went on and had two more children in a short space of time. And then the depression kind of left, but the anxiety kicked in.
Yeah.
So it was things like, the house has got to be immaculate, the kids have got to be immaculate, and palpitations racing all the time. I remember one time opening the oven and I just pulled out the tray with my bare hand because I just wasn't in my own head. It was racing so much, I wasn't really there. And I screamed, but it was like I was dehumanized in a way. I wasn't Katie, I was somebody else, something else had gone on. But I mean, that was 16 years ago, so mental health wasn't a thing then. It wasn't talked about then. We didn't know anything. So then you fast forward, I would say, to 34, when I went to the hospital because I had really bad pains in my back and my stomach. Um, and I don't know why I laugh about it because it's not funny, it's surreal. But I had like various bits of me removed. And then I got called back in and they said to me, oh, we found cancer inside and outside of your ovary. And I was like, again, like with my friend who'd took his own life, I was just like, I'm a very nosy person. I'm a researcher as well. I like to go and find out why things happen so we can make sense of them and then we can do something about it. I like that level of control, and studying human behavior, but that was something I had no control over. And that was time stood still again. And I remember, I think the reason I smile about it now, because I've detached myself from that being me. So I remember walking out of the hospital and I was just sobbing. I couldn't take on board what they were saying to me. I just thought, I'm going to die. That's it. It's a death sentence. I'm going to die. Because that's all I knew from the media, that if you get cancer, you're going to die. There's no in between. So I walked to the car and it was absolutely lashing down. And I'm crying and I'm on my own. And everyone I'm trying to call to tell them, like, oh, bloody hell, this is the biggest gossip you're going to get today, girl. Nobody was answering the phone. And I was like, just when you need someone to answer the phone, no one's there. So now I look back and I kind of think I can laugh about that now. It was soul destroying at the time, but it's just sod's law. But I remember going home and I was quite dissociated from it's me. So I'd say certainly for the first day, I thought, I'm going to die, I'm going to die. And then I had to give that news to my mum, which was horrific. My mum was the worst person in the world to tell because my mum had two children and my sister died when I was younger.
Yeah.
So for me to be the only child left and to tell her I've got a death sentence again when she'd already lost a child, I felt kind of, I wouldn't speak for other people, I would always say I felt, but I felt this massive responsibility of this horrible news and this almost like torturous content that I was putting on somebody that I loved massively. So there's a lot of things that go on. Then I thought, do I tell the children? Do I not? Who do I tell? I felt responsible for telling other people, which I think now was me dissociating from it being happening to me.
Yeah.
You know, I typically think of myself last and other people first because I like doing that. But I put it up on Facebook. I put it up on Facebook because I thought, do it once and then it's done. Because I needed to somehow get it out of me as well, like give it to other people, let other people be part of this, so I'm not on my own. And then, long story short, I had to have radical surgery, which meant I couldn't have children anymore. I couldn't be a mum because I had a hysterectomy, but it was life-saving because they couldn't have given me chemo, because typical me, it was like a rare, ambiguous form of cancer. If you're gonna get it, you'll do it rare, you know.
Yeah.
So they couldn't do the chemo, and they said to me when they did the hysterectomy, it had gone from stage 2 to stage 3, which for ovarian cancer is where it goes. That's the furthest limit.
Yeah.
So, but at the time, I'd put down plans to start uni. So this had happened in the summer, and I had about 4 weeks till I was going to uni, and I was bloody going to uni. I waited a long time to go to uni. And I was saying to, like, I remember saying to the doctor, okay, so I'll have the operation, full hysterectomy. I'm fine with that now. I've got children. I'm okay with that. This is life-saving, I get that. But can we fit it in half term? Because I've got these lectures coming up. And he was like, oh my God, you're not. I wasn't like I was in my own head. I was thinking pragmatically for the future I'd laid down for myself. I wasn't thinking about life or death. I was thinking, that'll be fine. I'll sort that out. Just a semantic. But I ended up having surgery, and then luckily I went to uni like 4 days later, and I got in the queue, and I signed my name, and I started my degree, and the degree, I think, saved my mental health because it was massive distraction. But then the third and final year, my body slowed right down.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like, I didn't know at the time, but it was obviously depression. You know, when they say the black dog or the black cloud, it was, I remember waking up one morning and I just thought, I cried because I thought, I don't even physically have the energy to get out of bed. I didn't know what was happening. I knew I was busy. I knew I'm always running 100 miles an hour, but I have more energy than most people that I've ever met. And I've always had that. So I went to brush my teeth and my arm was sore, like I was aching. My muscles were sore. And I wasn't doing the gym or anything like that, far from it. But I was just crying and sobbing as I was brushing my teeth. And I thought, I don't know what this is. So I went to one of my lecturers, and luckily he was like a specialist in cancer research. And he had said to me, people who have had cancer sometimes can get to a 2.5 year mark where they've been fine, you know, where they're just living life and they're lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it catches up with them when they slow down. It catches up with them. And I think that is largely how mental health works. Distraction is great, but unless you process traumas that you've been through, psychological, physical, anything that's traumatized you, even if to somebody else it's silly or not traumatic, if something has frightened you and your sense of safety, you need to process that in a psychological manner, because if you don't, you can live 10, 20, 30 years, but you will get to a point where it will come and it will find you because it traps inside your body.
Yeah.
So luckily I was studying human behavior and stuff, so I felt like I had some insight, but the depression just hit me out of nowhere, and I thought I'd been warned it could happen. I'd studied, mental health and depression, and I thought, wow, I did not see that coming at all. So, I mean, there was a guy, well, there was a friend of mine actually, who said to me, you know, she could see how tired I was, but she knew I had such massive energy levels, and she said, this is different. So she said, come to the gym with me. And I said, I couldn't think of anything worse. I can't move. I'm like a snail. I'm just about managing to put food in my mouth. And she's like, please, please, please come tomorrow at like 6 o'clock in the morning. And I went and I cried the whole way there. And I only went because she's quite a strong character. And I was like, oh, I've got to do as I'm told.
Yeah.
And I got there and I engaged with a friend of mine called Jamie, who's a PT. And honest to God, he was so educated on mental health, physical health, and how the two are intertwined.
Yeah.
I said to him, I don't want to get hot, I don't want to sweat, I didn't want to do anything that made me more exhausted, because I didn't have it to give and it felt like punishment. So he said to me, it's fine, we'll do weights, we'll pick stuff up, you don't need any cardio. He literally cared. He was such a good PT. But I feel so grateful to him, because he got me from, he could see how weak and broken I was, and I was heavy and I was slow, and he literally built me up with the weights. And after the third session of going to the gym, the lights just came on, and I'm very visual. I visualize everything.
Yeah.
But all the lights just come on. My eyes were open. I could see colours better. I felt like I wasn't so tired. I felt like all of a sudden I just had something that just given me so much energy, and I was back. And I thought, you know what? Never, ever, ever underestimate the power of physical exercise for your mental health. So now, I mean, I still don't do cardio and stuff like that. I try and do stuff that is more pleasurable, like, you know, picking up weights and then going and having a Kit Kat and then picking up more, you know, instead of like running and stuff like that. I just don't want my body to be punished anymore, or my mental health. But then I suppose the next phase of life, which had an implication on my mental health. Do you feel like I'm a bit of a cat with 9 lives? So me and my daughter went to the Ariana Grande concert, where the Manchester bombing took place. And I mean, that was another surreal moment, because we were standing watching Ariana Grande, and Ella, my daughter's a massive fan. So we were staying right till the end. We weren't going anywhere, and we were going to try and pick up stuff she dropped from the ceiling. And we just heard this massive bang. But there was these huge, big, like pink, like if you think of like balloons, but big ones, they were falling from the ceiling. And as a mum, you're always kind of like looking for danger, like that's dangerous. That's, you know, you're always safeguarding. And I'd seen them fall down and throughout the concert. And I thought, if one of them gets popped, that's going to make a bloody big noise. So then at the end of the concert, to hear a noise, I thought, oh, it's one of them. But then it was in milliseconds, we heard someone say, he's got a gun. So before I even had a chance to even process, I was on the floor. My body had lifted up and thrown itself on the floor. And I always laugh about this as well, because when I stood up, I thought, oh, don't be stupid. Bloody hell, you've made a show of yourself, because it was nothing. It was one of the balloons, what you originally thought. And someone behind me had panicked and said, it's someone with a gun, and it wasn't. But when I looked at my daughter, because we're such different human beings, she was still texting. She was midway through a text, and I'm on the floor, like dodging for cover. So I hadn't tried to save her, and I'll own up to that. I had not tried to grab my child. I threw myself over the chair. But when I looked at her, she's like still mid-conversation. She hadn't even heard this almighty bang. But when we looked over the arena, there was like a swarm of young girls running out screaming, running back in, running into each other. And I just thought, oh my God, you silly girls, it was a balloon, it was a balloon. Calm down, you know, there's going to be a stampede. Um, and then the screams were horrible. We didn't see anything at that point. But then the compare came on because it was getting dangerous. People were jumping on each other and phones were getting smashed and people were panicking. And the compare come on and he said, there is nothing to worry about. You need to just leave in a sensible manner. There's nothing to worry about. Nothing has happened. So I thought, well, that's what I'd kind of come to the conclusion of. So therefore, everything's fine. And then Ella and I went and picked up the greedy money that had fallen from the ceiling and just casually like made our way out. And it was when we got to the steps, not the massive steps at the Emmy and the smaller ones, there was clothing, which I now think was blown off people because there was no reason for the types of clothing to be where they were. It was weird. But there was a police guy, and I still to this day think, what a brave person to do a job like that, because he was running in and we were being told to run out, and at this point they're saying, there's a bomb, there's a bomb. And I'm thinking, oh God, what kind of a person does it take to go into danger? And he's safeguarding us. So we came out and there was a guy like my age and he was crying so much he couldn't breathe. He was almost like vomiting, but it was air. And he was saying, I can't believe what I've just seen. There's bodies everywhere. And I'm thinking, what the bloody hell is going, you know? I'm just thinking this is a not real situation. So then more and more police came and paramedics, and we were walking, trying to get to our hotel, and people were like zombies. They were literally walking through people, driving on pavements, bashing into each other. They were petrified. And Ella and I thought, God, you know what? I'm responsible here. I'm her mum, so she'll react to how I keep the environment safe for her, but I've got no control. So I was kind of like, oh, do you know what? Everything's going to be fine. Our hotel's over there. We'll put the sat nav on and we'll walk around. But we couldn't get to the hotel because there was like a certain area cordoned off because they expected another bomb. So we kept coming back to the MEN. We came back like 2 or 3 times. And each and every time we came back, we saw somebody else who was injured being carried out. And it wasn't nice. But then when we went back eventually got back to the hotel, we were just kind of like, what? You know, the way sometimes people giggle when they're nervous?
Yeah.
I've never done that. But now when I look back at traumatic events, I do giggle about it. I never understood why people did that before, but I get it now. It's like a nervous thing. But remember, we got back to the hotel and we were just like, what the hell has happened? And we put the news on, and it was all over the news. It was all over the news. And then we were like, let's just go to sleep. Let's just go to sleep, because everybody was trying to message us and text us, are you safe? Are you safe? Do you need picking up? Blah, blah, blah. And that's so overwhelming, but nice. So we went to sleep and we woke up the next morning and again, the world had stood still.
Yeah.
For me, the world was silent. And I just thought, what am I supposed to do? I've been brought up to help people. It's your social responsibility to help people in need. That's in my DNA. That's who I'm happy to be. That's all I've ever known. What do I do in that situation? How can I help people? There was kids without parents. There was there was media people everywhere, people that you see on the news that, you know, you'd think, oh, I see you on the TV, I don't see you in the street, and everyone was there. But it was silent, even though you had all of these people. People were trying to get interviews from us, and we were just walking around trying to figure out what we can do. And there was nothing we could do, because the people in Manchester were just phenomenal. Such amazing people. They just got straight in, did what needed doing. Everyone just came together. We weren't needed. So, but I felt like we had to try. So then I said to Ella, right, well, we've tried and there's nothing that's required from us. So we can go home now to our safe place,
Yeah.
and we can figure this out. And at the time, I was studying PTSD. So I thought, oh my God, anything that's jeopardise your sense of safety can cause you psychological harm. So go to your GP, get yourself down to have counselling or something as early as you can. Ella didn't want to go. But I went to the doctors, and I was just sitting there in this dreamlike state telling her the story. And everybody wanted to know the details, because they just do, don't they? They want to know what's happened. So every person at the doctors, every other person I spoke to, when Ella went to school, she was treated like she was a mini celebrity because she'd been in a bomb blast. But it was too much. It wasn't fun. That wasn't a nice,
Yeah.
wasn't nice attention. It wasn't wanted. And I was just trying to keep my eye on Ella, because I thought, I've been through that many things. Nothing's keeping me down. It never will. But I have good coping strategies with healthy eating and understanding mental health and exercise. And I know those things are an everyday coping skill. But for her, I was quite helpless, and I had to just kind of watch her. She degraded with her mental health quite significantly. And I know she'd be okay with me telling you that about 4 months ago, it came to a peak, not just from the Ariana Grande concert, but just maybe from my mum having cancer, maybe from the Ariana Grande, maybe from being a teenager, the fact that you guys have got the hardest period of your life at that age. It all built up to a few months ago where she actually took paracetamol out of the cupboard. She walked to school. She took 23. She'd researched how many to take without ending your own life. So she was doing it for a cry for help. And I get a phone call from school, and they just tell me what's happened. So I race down to school thinking, oh my God. Gets in the ambulance, gets to the hospital. I was so angry with her, because I've got a really good relationship with her. And I felt like I'd let her down, and I didn't know what I'd done.
Yeah.
Because I do mental health, I help people all the time. And I felt like, how could I not, how did I not know? How did I let it get to this stage, you know? So I had to sit with her for 24 hours. She had a charcoal drip. Sorry, the dog's come in, she's distracted me. She had a charcoal drip for 24 hours. And it was literally, I felt like I was watching her decline in front of my eyes. Because although she'd researched it and she'd taken the amount to not have any negative implications on you physically, when she went in to be tested, she had to wait for hours and hours. And there's a certain point where you then need to go on a drip, you know, to mitigate physical harm to your body. And that time had passed. So we went into the cubicle, and the doctor said to her, this time has passed. I've known, he checked the levels. He said, your levels are so high. I know people who've had levels half as high as yours, and they've died. So she passed out. She fainted there and then. And I felt like bloody getting in the bed with her because I thought, oh my God, what the hell can I do? And then, long story short, she went on the charcoal drip, keep saying grip. She had the drip. She declined in front of our eyes. She went grey. She kept passing out. She had reactions. And I was just sitting there for 24 hours thinking, oh God, I just thought, is my child dying in front of my eyes here? What the hell have I done? Even though I didn't feel like I'd done anything, but I'm in mum.
Yeah.
You go down there, I'm in mum. That's the most important role in my eyes in the entire world. I'm in mum. So I got into bed with her in the night time because we had to wait for 24 hours just to see if it had managed to leave her system without damaging her organs. And it was the longest 24 hours of my actual life. And I got in the bed with that and I was just holding her because I thought, I don't know how long I've got left with her. And then the nurse came in and she'd only just turned 16. She'd only just turned 2 weeks before. So she was on an adult ward, so I wasn't allowed to stay with her. And I just said to the nurse, do you know what? I said, would you leave your child? I'm not going anywhere. I'm not having a confrontation. I'm not a person. I'm not leaving that child because I felt like if I went home, I'd come back and she'd be gone. That's how horrible it was. So I said to her, I'll go and sleep in my car. I said, oh, that's what I'll do. I'll sleep in my car. You can't kick me out. This isn't fair. So she said, well, I'll ask Ella what Ella wants to do. But Ella had took the overdose because Ella felt unable to talk and express her emotion. That's why she took the bloody overdose. So they asked her because she was an adult, and Ella said, oh, because she's a very good girl. She said, no, it's fine, Mum, you go home. And I went home and I just thought, oh, God, this bloody hospital, it's given us nothing but bad luck. And then I came back the next day and she was brighter. She was grey, like a corpse, but she was brighter. And I just felt so angry towards her because I thought, but it was actually me I was angry with. So I had to just kind of take a step back. And she came home the next day. Her levels were fine. She came home the next day. And I just thought, usually when you have a trauma and it has an implication on your mental health, because I've had so much, highs and lows of traumatic instances and feeling low in energy and recognizing that, I will very quickly pull myself up, whether it's exercise or healthy eating. I know how sensitive my body is to not putting them things in place. So for me, they're every single day. But with Ella, when I brought her home, something had changed, and it wasn't my mental health. It wasn't. It could have been, but because I had good practices, it wasn't. It was almost like over the years, I've now armed myself with the right tools to be okay, regardless of what happened. And that was a pretty big ordeal. But for me with Ella, something changed in my brain, and it wasn't in relation to mental health. It was about looking at your position in the world, whether you're a mum, a son, a daughter, whatever your position is in the world, your identity. We are very responsible for not only ourselves, but for people that we can care for.
Yeah.
And not everybody gets that. Not everyone's able to do that. I am able to do that because I'm very, very lucky. So with Ella, I had to take a step back and I had to look at my life and me as a human in her life, as well as her dad and her siblings and our lifestyle. And I had to kind of go, something needs to change here. She's never going to be one of those girls who will talk and reach out, which I advocate a lot with mental health, reach out, talk. But I had to change my mindset because she felt so unable to talk that she attempted to take her own human life.
Yeah.
She's a very happy girl with a very happy life. So I then had a child, a young woman, who felt unable to talk but needed to express herself. So I had to be the one to try and work out how you would navigate that. And subsequently, she's she's found her voice a little bit, but I've changed things in my life massively.
Yeah.
Because that to me is a game changer. Your children are everything. So I wouldn't place that blame on anyone else. I'm taking it for myself that something needed to change because it doesn't get any worse than that. You know, I can have the cancer and the bomb, whatever else, I'll take all of that. But that to me is horrific. So now she's become, I think because the changes have been made, they've contributed to her feeling a bit more able to express herself. But her mental health seems to be really good now because she's become quite proactive
Yeah.
for like pro-social behaviour. So she goes to protests and she's always advocating rights of vulnerable people. So she's found her outlet, which she can't communicate about herself. She feels unable. So what she does instead is she'll communicate on behalf of other people.
Yeah.
And she's just the most beautiful thing you've ever seen. But it's really changed my mindset on the advice I offer as well, especially with Men to Army. And I'm also a mental health trainer. It's important to not brand people as this is how we feel, this is what we do, this is what that looks like. You've got human experiences, whether you want to diagnose them with conditions or not. Diagnosis is just a category to help you get treatment. Not everyone wants that. Not everyone wants medical treatments. Some people just want Maisie. She's such a baby. Some people want to find their own way, and that's fine as well. But I think it's really important that we don't put on people too much of what we think works for us. You know, like, well, I do yoga or I do this. You know, tell people that's what you do.
Yeah.
So don't say to them, well, you should do this or you should do that. Or, you know, things like you should reach out, you should talk. It shouldn't be a should because not everyone feels able. So yeah, it's good to reach out and it's good to talk. It's great. It's great. But if you don't feel able, where does that leave you?
Yeah.
So that's my life story.
So obviously, after all, your experiences throughout life that have kind of hit you in the face, and it's come such to a surprise. How has every situation made you feel?
Oh, well, I'll tell you how it's made me feel because I have. When I started studying my masters in PTSD, I heard this word dissociation, and they were like, "Oh, it's a big thing, in people who've had trauma, where they dissociate from it happening to them." So, I think in one way I've been very lucky that with every single trauma, I've managed to kind of compartmentalize. I think that's the word where you go. It's almost like you're having an out of body experience. Like it's
Yeah.
not me, it's something else. I'll section that off. Um, so I think with every trauma, I've always looked at it as in a bounce back quite quick. But I think that's just because I've dissociated from it happening to me as a way of protecting myself, which is just another form of distraction, really.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't go anywhere, it stays in your body. And then it can manifest in physical health conditions, i.e., the cancer when I was 34. So, yeah, distraction is great, but isn't a long term solution. And when each trauma I've had it's been a state of shock and then dissociation from this isn't real, like a dream-like state.
Yeah. So if you could take yourself back to kind of an experience where you felt at your lowest, would you do anything differently than what you did?
Oh, now what was my lowest? Oh, so I'll tell you what, if I say my lowest point was probably almost the end of my degree when I run out of energy. So it wasn't straight after a trauma. It was just my mental health had caught up on me.
Yeah.
If I could do anything differently, I probably wouldn't, because I'm not a sensible person at all. But if I could go back and physically go back to that person who went through those things, I would say I would get someone to sit them down, and I'd get someone to say, you've been through a massive, massive trauma.
Yeah.
You may not feel like you have. You may feel like you've survived it, and that's great. Those feelings are great. But your brain has been like a snow globe, and it's been shook, and those pieces will come back down eventually. They will never be in the same place as what they were.
Yeah.
Just for me, like that visual would work for me. But would I have listened? Probably not. So if in an ideal world, I would go back and say, slow down, there's no rush. Slow down, take it in, rest, repair, recover. But then the other side of me kind of feels like, well, I've survived without doing any of that. So
Yeah.
you've got the sensible option, and then you got me. So
What would you tell the people then that are kind of behind closed doors?
if somebody was suffering with the mental health, largely, what I deal with a lot with them into is people are dealing with mental health problems, and it usually stems from a trauma, whether it was in early childhood, whether it was just from being born, birth is traumatic, whether it was something that happened last week, whether it was something that they don't even know if anything's happened. I think people suffering from mental health problems largely will withdraw and isolate themselves. And it's one of the worst things that you could do. You've got to be around other human beings. And I don't give myself this advice. I isolate myself so much because my work is online. So when I do see other humans, I'm a bit like, hi, how are you? You know, like really delighted to see them.
Yeah.
I'm really excited. But we are a race of people who need people. We need touch. We need conversation. We need inspiration. We need a little bit of drama, a little bit of stress. But I think what I would say to someone who is going through a really dark period of time is, are your energy levels low? Do you feel quite flat? Or do you have anxiety? Is it the opposite? Or are you toying between both? I would say to them, and what I say to everyone is, you are going through a very normal human experience, probably because something has happened, or there's been an accumulation of things that have happened, and it's caught up on you. Because guess what? You're that clever, you're that smart as a human being. Your body's trying to communicate to you, I'm not feeling well, I'm not great, I need you to do something to make me feel better. Your
Yeah.
body's telling you that. Mental health to me is your brain's way of saying, I need something, and I'm letting you know through these symptoms. Same as if you had a rash, a physical rash on your body. Your body's trying to tell you something. So we need to listen to what our body's saying and showing us. And we need to care about ourselves enough to want to help it, because
Yeah.
we need it, you know?
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you for taking some time to come on and speak to me today about your experience. It's been lovely to chat to you.
Oh, thank you so much. This has been like the highlight of my, well, highlight of lockdown, definitely.
Yeah. So yeah, I do greatly appreciate you coming on. And I hope to see you soon when lockdown's over.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Soon.
We don't talk anymore.